Hello and a very warm welcome back to my YouTube channel. And today I want to talk about the real estate market in Uruguay and why I think this is a very good place to invest. So let's get straight down to it. Here are 10 reasons why I think it's a great idea to invest in the Uruguayan real estate market. Number one, it's considered a safe haven. So particularly in South America, it's considered very politically and economically stable. So you don't get as many revolutions in the country and protests as you have done in many other South American countries. Also, economically speaking, you don't have, for example, defaults like you do in Argentina, bankruptcies, which we've often seen over the last 25 years in Argentina. And even in 2009, where there was a global financial crisis, because the Uruguayan banks are very, very well capitalized and stable, they didn't suffer. And the actual economy in 2009, during that period, grew by 4.2%. So really, really a beacon of stability. Number two is the good infrastructure. Now, Uruguay is considered overall having the best infrastructure in the whole of South America. So if we take things like internet speed, the roads, public transportation, electrical grids, etc. Uruguay is actually considered the best of the lot in South America. Number three, it's also considered very socially stable as well. So you have the least economic disparity in the whole of South America. You don't get things like you do, for example, in Brazil, where you get either very wealthy people or very, very high levels of poverty. And also, the Uruguayans are considered a pretty inclusive lot. They are very welcoming to foreigners. And I just want to add one more thing. The good thing is that you don't have natural disasters like landslides, earthquakes, etc. in Uruguay, and like you do, for example, in Chile. Number four, and specifically concerning property, you as a foreigner have the same rights buying property as locals do, and this includes land as well, and that can only be a good thing. Number five are the reasonable prices. So in Montevideo, on average, expect to pay just under $2,000 per square meter for a property. But the two areas I recommend, Pocitos area, which is a lovely long beach front area, long sandy beach, lovely with parks, an excellent golf course, two shopping malls. Expect to pay around $3,000 to around $3,500 per square meter for a flat there. Now, I think that's very good value considering it is the top end of property in Montevideo. But if your budget doesn't stretch that far, in the old city, where you have a lot of lovely period architecture, museums, and lovely squares, you'll only pay around $2,000 per square meter. And I think that's exceptional value. So I would stick to these two areas of Montevideo. And if you don't buy in those two areas and you want to buy outside Montevideo, I think the only other place I would consider, because there's a lot of foreign buyers, in particular Brazilian and Argentinians, I would consider Punta del Este, which is a lovely, lovely beach resort. There, expect near the beach to pay about $2,500 per square meter. Now, following on from this, number six are the good yields. So in Montevideo, expect to get around 5.5% to 6% yields. That's pretty good for a capital, especially when you compare it to some European capitals like France. In France, Paris, where you'll expect to get around 3 to 3.5%, which isn't great. Following on, number seven is taxation. Now, the good thing here, you've got low rental income tax and low capital gains tax, both at 12%. But capital gains tax does take into account inflation. So if all your gains are due to inflation, you'll pay no capital gains tax. Number eight is the birth rate. So the birth rate in Uruguay is nearly 2 per couple. So this should ensure going forward there will not be a depopulation like you have, for example, in countries like Italy, Japan, and other Western European countries. Number nine, the economy has not performed too badly either. So you've got a relatively stable currency, so you don't have currency fluctuations like you do in other countries, namely one, for example, I covered the Ukraine, where it's off the scale. Here, it's relatively stable. And also the government debt, total government debt to GDP over the last few years has been around the 60% mark. It's not incredibly low, but it is a lot lower than many Western European countries, indeed lower than the EU average, lower than the UK, lower than the US, and that's not too bad. Also, what I like is that the average growth over the last 20 to 22 years in Uruguay has been 2.35% a year. That's pretty good. It's not spectacular, but it still is pretty good. There have been fluctuations up and down, so it's not been consistent. But if you take it over 20 years to over 2%, that's pretty good going. However, there have been a few negatives economics-wise. So inflation has sometimes been above 10%, and it is a pretty consistent problem. And so unemployment too has been a bit of a problem. It has been consistently above the 5% mark. But point 10, what I also like is as of 1st of July this year, 2020, foreign nationals will be able to obtain fiscal residency on condition that they spend 60 days each year in Uruguay and own an apartment of approximately $370,000 to $400,000 US dollars. This depends on the exchange rate. And the great thing about this is that there will be no income taxes or property taxes to pay for 10 years. Now, that is a great incentive to actually go and live in Uruguay. So what they're saying is we want foreign property buyers, and we want people to live in our country as well. This is good also for the population. It also ensures that there won't be depopulation. I think they were aiming for 100,000 to 200,000 people to settle in the country. So there are some negatives. So let's take Montevideo. The average salary is only $650 US dollars per month net, which isn't great. So it's not exceptionally low, but it isn't great. Also, there is a low population density in Uruguay, except for Montevideo. So you've got, if you compare it to, let's compare it to the Netherlands, you have over 4 times as much land as the Netherlands while having 5 times fewer inhabitants. So that does tell you that I think outside Montevideo, or the Punta del Este, which is an exceptional place where you get foreign buyers, I'm not really sure. I don't really think you should invest. I think you should stick to the capital. Also, the buy-sell costs are pretty high. So in total, you'll pay about 14% between real estate, notary fees, and registration fees, and also real estate transfer fees. And also, coming to point 4, the annual property taxes, you'll pay between 0.35% and 1.7%, depending on location and other factors. So do check that out when you're buying property. There's also an annual wealth tax as well if you buy from abroad and don't settle there for at least 60 days a year. So, but this only applies for properties around over $130,000 for a single person if they buy, or $260,000 if you're a couple. So if you do buy at the lower end, this will not apply to you. And finally, for properties built before 1968, it is pro-tenant, so you cannot increase the rent during the first year, and there's an you can't increase it above a certain indexation in Uruguay. But anything built after 1968, you can do that. Anyway, it's been great having you again. I think Uruguay is a definite yes to buy, and it could be a good time because I think with an impending bankruptcy in Argentina, there's going to be a lot of Argentinians buying. And I think if you are from North America, Europe, or Asia, you should also consider this market. Anyway, thanks for watching. Please do click the subscribe button. If you like the video, click the like button, and I'll see you very soon. Thank you and goodbye.